All right, guys. So Kamala Harris has obviously had a significant amount of momentum in her favor over the last couple of weeks since Joe Biden decided that he was not going to seek re-election after a massive pressure campaign from voters and donors and Democratic Party officials. And Kamala has been hitting the campaign trail with her newly selected vice presidential candidate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. And here we have what I think is the first major off teleprompter, off script challenge to Kamala Harris. Here we have anti-genocide protesters who are upset with the Biden-Harris administration's handling of the now 9-10-month endless slaughter of innocent men, women, and children inside of Gaza in the West Bank. Let's go ahead and watch how Kamala Harris handled this situation.
He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it right there and just let you guys soak in this sort of like pro-genocide girl boss face that Kamala Harris is making right here. But first, before I circle back around to this, let's watch it from the perspective of the protesters themselves. This is a different angle of the same exact moment. And I want you guys to take note, not only of Kamala Harris, but of the surrounding liberals, the surrounding Democratic Party loyalists, and how they treat these anti-genocide protesters. Let's watch this second clip here. Okay, so what we have here is protesters showing up to Kamala Harris's rally to say what exactly? To say that they are against the endless slaughter of innocent men, women, and children with U.S. weaponry that has been delivered to the apartheid genocidal state of Israel. That's what these protesters are trying to get across. That in a state like Michigan, that, keep in mind, had over 100,000 people in the Democratic primary vote uncommitted, specifically to send a message to the Biden administration about their position on the U.S. endless support for Israel in their genocidal war. In this state, Kamala Harris's response to these anti-genocide protesters was, again, basically to make this snarky, sneering face at them and to say, if you want Trump to win, then just say that. Otherwise, I'm talking. Guys, this is the same line that she used back in 2020 when she was in a debate with Mike Pence. Now, if you're in a debate with Mike Pence and he's interrupting you, this kind of thing may hit differently. Some people may like that. Some people may like the way that she responded to these protesters. Not me. Not me. Because this is not Mike Pence that's your opponent. This is people who simply care about the fact that our tax dollars, our weaponry, is being sent to a country that is dropping those bombs, that is using our taxpayer-funded weapons to drop on the heads of innocent children in Gaza. That's what these protesters are showing up for. They're asking for the bare minimum. Let's be clear about this, guys. They are asking for Kamala Harris to abide by not only international law, but U.S. law. Because we know that things like the Leahy Law exist, the Foreign Assistance Act exist. We understand that funding a military, funding a government that is wantonly committing brazen violations of international law and committing war crimes with our weaponry, we know that sending them bombs is illegal. We know that Israel is being subjected to potential ICC, International Criminal Court, arrest warrants for their prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, for their defense minister, Yoav Gallant. We understand that Israel is being subjected to a genocide case at the International Court of Justice. So, to look at protesters who are aware of those things, who are upset about those things, upset about the fact that the U.S. is complicit in all of this, to look at them with this sneering, smarmy, fuck you face, and to say, unless you want Trump to win, shut the fuck up, that's disgusting. That is as disgusting as it gets. And not only is it substantively wrong, but it's politically stupid as fuck. It's stupid politically, as pointed out here by Hasanabi. He says an absolutely wild thing to do in a state where the number of voters that voted uncommitted in the primary was almost the same as the margins that Biden won by in 2020, not having a single line prepared to hold your commitment to a permanent ceasefire after you met with them. So what he's talking about here is apparently the Kamala Harris campaign met with the uncommitted voter movement, and they were supposedly open to a potential Israeli arms embargo. They were open to hear what the uncommitted movement had to say. And yet we had this update that came here, as pointed out by Prem Thacker, from the National Security Advisor to Kamala Harris, Phil Gordon. He said, the VP has always been clear. She will always ensure Israel is able to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist groups. She does not support an arms embargo on Israel. She will continue to work to protect civilians in Gaza and uphold international humanitarian law. There's a metric fuck ton of contradictions within this statement that maybe I can circle back to. But the top line that I want to say here is just that politically, remove the humanitarian aspect out of the atrocities that we are seeing inside of Gaza. Just politically, how stupid is this as a response? You didn't have anything prepared for potentially being confronted by anti-genocide protesters? This is something, by the way, that happened to Biden multiple times on the campaign trail. And even as pointed out here by Halal Flow, he says, this is worse than Biden. She's supposed to be the more empathetic one towards Palestinians, and even Biden never did this. Biden said, when he was confronted by anti-genocide protesters, he said, be patient with them. They have got a point. We need to put a lot more care into Gaza. So just purely from a political standpoint, is this the strategy that you're going with? This is a strategy in a state like Michigan that could be decided potentially by a few thousand votes here or there, right? You are going to go with this strategy of sneering at these protesters, insinuating that, I mean, the look that she's giving here, guys, is like, you're a bunch of children. And if you don't fall in line with my pro-Israel policy, then you must want Trump to win. Or maybe they just want Palestinian babies to stop being incinerated. Maybe that could potentially be what's happening here. So politically, to do this in a state like Michigan at a rally like this may go over well. I've seen it online. I've seen the reactions to this clip. This may go over well with people who are already planning to vote for Kamala Harris. But for people who care about what Israel is doing to Palestinians, for people who care about what's going on in Gaza, this is not exactly a great move. Not exactly a great move, to say the least. Now, again, in terms of her meeting potentially with the uncommitted voters, this is a meeting that she had. It was immediately undercut by one of her top national security advisors. I don't know where this is going to go from here. Maybe she'll keep having meetings with the uncommitted crowd, but not exactly an encouraging sign here from Kamala Harris in terms of where she's going to stand on all of this. And it's also not an encouraging sign. I mean, when you have crowd members, like this one guy in this red shirt back here, this guy, who says, go vote for Trump. And I'm pretty sure he's wearing a UAW shirt here. It's incredibly disappointing, actually, because the UAW has been in favor of a ceasefire for a long time now. But to say, go vote for Trump, and to go with the Kamala Harris line of you must want Trump to win? No. I mean, take it from somebody like me. I don't want Trump to win. Trump was responsible for the Abraham Accords. Trump was responsible for moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Trump was responsible for laying the groundwork of throwing Palestinians under the rug that created a situation that led to October 7th in the first place. Donald Trump is not somebody I want to see behind the wheel in handling Israel and Gaza or handling Israel and Palestine. He's not somebody I want to see in charge. This is a protest that is intended to apply pressure on Kamala Harris. And her response to that is what? I mean, you didn't have anything prepared. I mean, like, even just from a political standpoint, even though this would basically be meaningless at a substantive level, just from a political standpoint, you didn't have anything prepared for this to say, well, you know what? They have a point, right? What we've been seeing in Gaza is unacceptable, and that's why we're working towards a ceasefire. Even if that's bullshit, substantively, you didn't have that answer prepared, locked, and loaded. You're going with the, oh, you have a critique of me. You have a critique of the Biden administration that has been going with the bear hug Netanyahu strategy for 9-10 months of a genocide. Oh, you're critiquing me. You must want Trump to win. That's the strategy. That's the strategy in a key swing state like Michigan. I mean, it's fucking delusional, guys. It's fucking delusional. Now, I'm going to end this video off with this because I was going to make this a separate video, but I think that it sort of ties into this because, guys, Cori Bush, member of the squad, just yesterday lost her Democratic primary election against this guy, Wesley Bell, in the state of Missouri, right? In St. Louis, essentially. And this came after AIPAC, a pro-Israel lobbying organization, spent millions of dollars to unseat her. Millions of dollars. Now, this comes after Jamal Bowman, another squad member, was unseated by AIPAC as well. I think altogether, they've spent, just with these two elections, Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, they have spent over $20 million. $20 million in Democratic primary elections, not even in general elections, primary elections, to unseat these two Democrats who happen to be one of the, like, at this point, literal handful of Democrats who are willing to be critical of the government of Israel. Now, the natural, I think, analysis from this is that groups like AIPAC, and I say groups like intentionally, groups like AIPAC should be illegal. These groups should not be allowed to exist. Whether it's a group like AIPAC that is explicitly advocating on behalf of what is in the best interest of a foreign government like Israel, or whether it's any other lobbying group that's advocating on behalf of a foreign government or a corporate interest or whatever the case may be, these kinds of organizations need to be outlawed. They should be criminalized. But this is how U.S. campaign finance works. You can have somebody like Cori Bush, who is critical of the government of Israel, and you can have a lobbying organization like AIPAC that is explicitly working on behalf of the government of Israel, and they can dump millions of dollars into an election like this to remove her from her position. To install somebody who they know will not be critical of the government of Israel. How is any of this shit legal in a so-called democracy? Does that make sense to you guys? I mean, we had a response here from Karine Jean-Pierre from the Biden White House. You're not going to believe this, guys. They actually attacked Cori Bush after this election happened. They attacked her because after she lost, she went out and launched what I think was an entirely fair attack against AIPAC as an organization. And so, of course, the Biden White House condemned Cori Bush attacking AIPAC after the pro-Israel group spent $9 million to unseat her. They invoked the assassination attempt on Trump and called Bush's comments divisive and incredibly unhelpful. And as pointed out here by our boy Prem Thacker, a recent anti-Cori Bush AIPAC ad altered her forehead and skin tone. So AIPAC can adjust Cori Bush's skin tone. They can adjust her skin tone and attack advertisements. But Cori Bush calling out AIPAC for their undue influence on American politics is somehow unacceptable to the Biden White House. AIPAC can spend $9 million to unseat her for the crime of being critical of Israel. And yet when she responds to that situation, that's divisive and incredibly unhelpful. Incredibly unhelpful. This is where we're at, guys, in American so-called democracy. I mean, just for a second, let's think about how much of a freakout there has been over the last number of years over the possibility that Russia had created online bots and it had in some way, shape, or form influenced the 2016 election in favor of Donald Trump. That they had somehow had an influence over U.S. politics. And then compare that to the analysis when it comes to groups like AIPAC. Suddenly, when it comes to a pro-Israel group, this conversation goes out the window. Not only does it go out the window, but you'll have the White House spokesperson, Karine Jean-Pierre, getting up there in front of the American people and not only defending AIPAC, but attacking somebody like Cori Bush, who dares to call out the undue influence that a group like AIPAC has over our politics. Now, to finish off here, we also have this, which I think is important to point out here. This was her opponent, Wesley Bell. And here's Cori Bush, and it's pointed out here by AIPAC themselves. They say, congratulations to pro-Israel progressive leader, Wesley Bell. By the way, it's not possible to be pro-Israel and progressive. Let's just be real about that. But they say, congratulations on your victory tonight against the anti-Israel squad member, Cori Bush. And it's pointed out here by Tariq, once again, if being pro-Israel was, quote, good policy and good politics, AIPAC wouldn't have had to spend $12 million, and the ads they paid for would have mentioned Israel. It's really that simple. And so the reason I bring that up is because, guys, you go and look at the advertisements that are funded by a group like AIPAC. These advertisements are not going after Cori Bush saying she is disloyal to the state of Israel. That's not their attack line. They attack her on a whole bunch of other completely unrelated things, including, by the way, what I just said, which was darkening her skin tone, right? As a part of what seems to be just sort of like a racist through line here for many of the anti-squad challengers. But it's important to focus on that because, as was pointed out there by Tariq, AIPAC will come out after an election like this and they will claim victory. They will say, look, anti-Israel policies are unpopular. Pro-Israel policies are popular. And it's like, you guys just spent millions of dollars in this election and none of your advertisements were attacking Cori Bush over her criticism of Israel. It was over completely unrelated things, right? And so it gives you an insight because if pro-Israel policy was actually that popular, as AIPAC says that it is, then you wouldn't have to dump $10, $12 million into an election like this in order to try to rig it in favor of the pro-Israel candidate. If it was actually that popular, you wouldn't have to spend that money in the first place. You also wouldn't have to spend that money on advertisements that have nothing to do with Israel, right? But that's where we're at. Somehow this is legal, guys. Somehow this is all fucking legal. I mean, it's a sick joke. It's a sick joke. So there you have it, guys. We have Kamala Harris getting her first real off-script test when it comes to the Israel and Gaza. And she didn't do too well, to say the least. Didn't do too well. And for me personally, genocide is the red line. Genocide is the red line. There's an opening here for Kamala Harris to take a different line than what the Biden administration has done so far. She could separate herself. She has a window of opportunity here. So far, based on this answer that we all just watched, it doesn't seem like she's ready to stake any sort of political capital on breaking from the Biden administration when it comes to Israel and Gaza. So we'll have to see how this goes from here. But so far, it's not looking too convincing.
Politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying